I found your child on the balcony, so I've brought her here.
In the middle of a freezing winter night, the doorbell rang. When I answered it, a police officer was standing there. I didn't understand what was happening. After all, my only daughter was sleeping beside me. The officer had him with a girl about 5 years old, her lips blue and shivering coldly. "She's not my child. I don't know this girl." I tried to explain, but the officer seemed doubtful, saying he would take her to the hospital. The girl's hair was overgrown and completely unkempt. Her dirty clothes had holes in them and they didn't look like they had been washed. She appeared the same age as my daughter but was very thin. Who is this child? Why was she on my balcony? Little did I know that the turmoil this girl would soon bring into our lives. My name is Janice. I'm a 32-year-old office worker. I lived on the first floor of an apartment that my parents bought for us, with my high school classmate husband and our 5-year-old daughter, Susie. My husband was also a company employee and often traveled for work. Being a good person, he would cover for his colleagues even on his days off, so he was often away. One day, while my husband was on a business trip, my daughter and I were home alone when the doorbell rang. In the middle of a freezing winter night, I wondered who it could be, and looking through the doorbell camera, I saw it was a police officer. I was baffled by this unexpected visitor, but when I opened the door, he said,
I found your child on the balcony, so I have brought her here.
I had no idea what he meant. Yes, my daughter is sleeping inside the house.
What?
The officer's eyes went wide, but I was the one who was really shocked. How had that girl gotten onto the balcony while I was asleep? I hadn't heard a thing. The officer had with him a girl about 5 years old, her lips blue and shivering uncontrollably. It had been so cold that it seemed like it might even snow, so it was no wonder. She's not my child. I don't know this girl. The officer seemed skeptical even after what I said, but he stated,
I'm taking her to the hospital now.
The girl looked so cold and pitiful that I brought a warm blanket from the back of the room and wrapped her in it. Her hands were like ice, so young, yet holding back tears and biting her lips without making a sound. Her hair was messy and her collar stained. Hole-ridden clothes showed no signs of having been washed. She looked incredibly thin and pale, as if she was malnourished. Who is this child? Why was she on my balcony? I couldn't help but wonder, and my heart ached thinking about a girl the same age as my daughter in such pain. I couldn't sleep much that night, worried about her. And morning came, that's when I got a call from my husband.
Anything unusual happened while I was on my business trip?
Well, yes, a strange girl was on our balcony. The police took her and they're taking her to the hospital. I was so surprised.
Why didn't you take care of her yourself?
What? But she's a stranger. What could I do?
You're a mother too. You should have taken care of that little girl instead of handing her over to the police. Isn't it sad?
I was baffled by my husband's sudden anger. Why did he know the girl was young? We hadn't even talked about that. I questioned him, but his answer was lacking in clarity.
No, actually, she's the daughter of an acquaintance of mine. Her mother's gone, and I felt sorry for her, so I brought her yesterday. I thought you would take care of her.
What? You weren't on a business trip? You need to explain the situation clearly. My husband apologized, but I couldn't believe that he had left such a small child on the balcony on such a cold day. Even if he had dressed her warmly, she could have easily frozen to death. So, what are you doing and where are you now? My husband said he was in the middle of searching for the girl's mother, but I felt like he was hiding something. Later on, after returning from his business trip, my husband gave some explanation, picked up the girl from the police, and shockingly left her with me. Did you find her mother? What about her father?
No, I haven't found them yet. The father, I don't know.
So, who's the acquaintance you mentioned?
Well, that's just a casual acquaintance. Let's leave it at that. I'm going on another business trip soon.
Wait a minute, what about this girl? My husband ignored my plea to stay and left, leaving the girl behind. I felt something was off about my husband's behavior, so I searched through his belongings and found something in the inner pocket of his suit. Shocked by the content, I quickly called my husband, but I couldn't get through to him. Suddenly, I noticed my daughter Susie and the little girl looking up at me anxiously. What's your name? Ashley? Ashley nervously answered in a small voice, told me she was the same age as my daughter, 5 years old. When I smiled gently at her, she looked at me with surprise, then laughed cheerfully, clutching her rumbling stomach. You must be hungry, right? Yes. I made Hawaiian plate lunches for my daughter and Ashley. They stared at the food in curiosity and then began to devour it. They ate so fast that their faces were covered in sauce. As I reached out to wipe her face with a tissue, Ashley quickly brought both hands to her head, covering it as if protecting herself. The motion gave me an uneasy feeling. It's all right, I'm just going to wipe your mouth, I said gently. With a relieved expression, Ashley turned her face towards me, and after I wiped up the sauce, she began to eat her Hawaiian plate again. After finishing her meal and wearing a completely satisfied expression, it was time to do something about Ashley's dirty body. As I started to undress her for a quick shower, I involuntarily gasped at the sight of her body. What is this? There were countless bruises as if she had been beaten and pinched. Trying not to show my agitation, I led her cheerfully to the bathroom. As I tried to wash her body, Ashley said, "It's okay, I can do it myself," and started to wash her body with cold water. Wait a minute, what are you doing? I accidentally snapped. She looked up at me with a puzzled face and said, Ashley always does it like this. What? Washing your body with water? I asked. She nodded at my question, and as she tried to pour cold water over herself, I hurriedly stopped her and washed her whole body cleanly with soap. Afterwards, I poured warm water over her and she murmured, "It's warm," with a contented look. It turned out that she rarely got to shower at home, and when she did, her mother would tell her to wash with water. The fact that she accepted this as normal without questioning, it made my heart ache. After the bath, I dressed her in my daughter Susie's clothes and neatly arranged her hair. Ashley looked completely transformed. My daughter and Ashley looked just like sisters when they stand together. I looked at my daughter and Ashley, whose faces seemed to remind me of each other with a warm smile. Ashley was an obedient and gentle child, and I could tell she was longing for affection. She would come by my side as I cooked, tug at the edge of my skirt and laugh. And when it was time to sleep, she would hold my hand and never let it go. Susie also grew fond of Ashley, and the two became close like real sisters. A week went by, and I still couldn't get in touch with my husband. Ashley's mother said she knew my husband, but I couldn't keep caring for a little child on just that information. I gave up on contacting my husband, consulted the police, and Ashley had to be sent to a facility. Tears rolled down her big eyes, and my heart ached watching her look back at me again and again as the people from the facility took her away. Time continued to pass without any news from my husband until I finally made a decision. 9 years later, I was living with my parents, my daughter Susie, and Ashley in our family home. I had actually adopted Ashley after she was taken to the facility. My parents in our family home treated her like their real grandchild, saying, "She came to us for a reason," and showered her with love. The two girls grew up as sisters and blossomed into beautiful young women. Susie and Ashley's dream of becoming models came true, and lately, they are being featured as beautiful junior models in magazines. Stepping into the glamorous world, the two were thriving and wore vibrant expressions on their faces. One day, the doorbell rang at our family home, and when I opened the door, there stood my ex-husband Philip, looking poor, down and out. A stranger who introduced herself as Joanna was with him. Not wanting to argue in front of the neighbors, I led them inside. Then, sitting on the living room sofa, the two abruptly began to speak.
In truth, Ashley is my child."
Philip, who hadn't contacted me in 9 years, said this without even apologizing. I was so stunned that I let out a big sigh. "She looks just like you. I thought it might be you, so is that woman over there your partner?" In response to my question, Philip nodded and began to tell the story of how he met the woman. Joanna had been working part-time at a bar Philip frequently visited. Even knowing that he was married with children, they got along and she became pregnant with Philip's child, giving birth to Ashley. However, Philip lacked decisiveness and didn't divorce me right away. Joanna grew tired of childcare and abandoned her role as a mother. In desperation, Philip thought of having me raise the child. It was an overly naive story, but what surprised me was not just that.
Please, give Ashley back to us.
My ex-husband suddenly stood up from the sofa and made an outrageous request, almost in tears, along with a deep apology. What? I happened to see a magazine and was surprised. She's grown up so well. Isn't she popular?
So what? It has nothing to do with you two.
But I am Ashley's real mother. You are just a fake after all.
How dare you say such a thing without contacting me all this time?
Then, Philip, who had been on his knees on the floor, grabbed my leg with a pathetic look on his face.
We don't have any money and are in trouble. Ashley's our only hope. Give her back.
How awful! You plan to make her work and live off her? No way!
Well, what? You're using Ashley to make money, aren't you? That's not fair.
Stop making false accusations. I'm saving the children's money on their banking cards. Ashley is my child too. I will never hand her over. Then, Joanna suddenly rises from the sofa, lunging at me with an air of recklessness that sends shiver down my spine.
What are you doing to my mom? Stop it.
In the scene bursts Ashley, my daughter. She spreads her arms wide, blocking my path, and glares at Joanna. Ashley, you've grown so beautiful. Remember me? I'm your mom. Let's go home together.
You're not my mother. Get out of this house now.
Ashley broke down in tears, clinging to me. Although Ashley was very young at the time, it seems a faint memory of the terrible treatment she endured remains. Ashley, dear, that's just a misunderstanding on your part. See, you were so young back then. In response to her flimsy excuses, I produced a note and photograph that I had found in Philip's suit back then. The note read, I don't want to raise a child. I can't find Ashley cute. Get rid of her somewhere. If you won't marry me, let's run away together. And the photograph showed a young Ashley covered in bruises. I also had the hospital medical report, of course. Do you still claim to be her parents after seeing this? That's...
You wanted to dump a child you didn't want to raise on me, didn't you? You made this precious child suffer such horrors.
That was all Philip's doing. I didn't know anything about it. I was too young to raise a child. It was inevitable. But anyway, I'll take Ashley back now.
Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I have legally adopted Ashley, so I am her parent.
Oh, what? That has to be a lie.
The mention of the law quickly deflated Joanna's momentum. However, Philip seemed to not have given up yet. So, if that's the case, I'll break up with Joanna and let's start over. Susie and Ashley are my children. We'll just go back to being husband and wife, so there won't be any problem, will there?
What? What are you saying? You just want things to go your way? Like I will let that happen?
Listening to their exchange, I was dumbfounded, then angry. I don't want to have anything to do with these people, not even for a moment. I have more bad news for you, Philip. You and I are no longer married. What? 3 years after you went missing, I filed a lawsuit and was granted a divorce. Hey, what are you doing on your own? Just as Philip was about to grab me, the sound of a police car approached. My parents had called the police after seeing Joanna's aggressive behavior. Well, the police are here now, so please don't come to our house again. No way, please forgive me. I'll give up on Ashley, but at least lend me some money. Philip put on a disgraceful show to the very end. Afterwards, he and Joanna were dragged away by the police. I plan to make sure Philip pays the alimony and child support in full. The two of them, cut off even from friends and family, will likely continue to struggle. Though there's been much turmoil, the little girl who once trembled in fear has grown splendidly. I will live happily with my parents and 2 loving daughters, looking forward to the future they speak of so full of